I was originally disappointed in you when you said you weren't going to join me drinking for this podcast, and you've changed. You do have a beer in your hand. You're ready to crack it for our intro. But you told me you were so hungover for Easter of all holidays. So I have to pose the question, like, what's the most appropriate holiday to be hungover for outside of New Year's Day? Because I don't think it's Easter.
It's probably not Easter. It's probably like, what is it? Blackout. What do they call it? Blackout Wednesday for Thanksgiving?
Yeah, that was going to be my vote.
I think that's the known one. If Christmas Eve counts as a holiday.
Yeah, I think that counts as a holiday.
Always get drunk on it.
Yeah. Because, well, the problem what you had with Easter is like Easter is one of those holidays where church is involved early the next day.
Oh, yeah.
And church hungover is a tough one. So how did that go for you?
I took a 15-minute shit in the middle of it just so I could escape some of it. Like, obviously, like, why don't you go right now? I'm like, no, I want to wait till church starts. So I knew that, like, once it started, I could just get out of there for 15 fucking minutes. And the guy in the stall next to me came in, and he was letting bombs drop. And I just wanted to be like, attaboy, because you were drinking the night before, too.
Yeah, you knocked that one on the head. I love it. Yeah. So with that, let's get loaded. Because this is the Loaded Box Podcast.
Where we never finish first, because we finish last.
Oh, nothing better than being hungover on a holiday, but we are back. It is the Loaded Box Podcast. I am Ben Morgan. That is somewhat, probably a 2-day hangover still, DJ Primo. We're recording this on the Monday after Easter, but we had to come back because we had to do one final podcast before the NFL draft. One of easily, for me, top 5 day of the year. Thursday.
Like that top, like the first round on its own.
Yeah.
One of the top 5. Because then it turns into like me and you back in the day was awesome, where we just kind of like play football in the yard and run back in and watch the draft and then go back and forth. That along with like March Madness.
March Madness Thursday, Friday.
Yeah, the first 2 days specifically. What else is there for a sports day that can go in there?
Opening day of football, because I would say the Super Bowl, but my team's never in it. So opening day of football, I'm just a train wreck that whole morning.
And fantasy football draft day.
Fantasy football draft day.
In our hometown where we do that, those are very good ones.
Yeah, I think we put in about 5 there. That's probably my top 5.
That's perfect.
Yep, but for this episode, we are going to be going over and breaking down our final mock drafts that we finally completed at this point through the season. We're going to be answering questions pertaining to the draft and what we find interesting leading up to Thursday's first round. If you've missed any of our positional preview podcasts, go back, check those out. We had some great guests on. In those ones, we broke down wide receivers, cornerbacks, and edge rushers. Check those out. Also, check out our website where you can find both DJ and myself's final mock drafts, along with one that we've done with Beer Fueled Fantasy Football earlier this offseason, and then our annual 32-person first-round mock. So that's all at loadedboxpodcast.com. But with that, smiling, hungover DJ, you got more energy today than I thought you would. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I ruined Easter yesterday, so I'm ready to go.
Ruin Easter for the sake of the podcast, for being ready on Monday. I like how you sacrificed yourself there.
Gotta do it. I am Jesus Christ.
Beautiful. All right. So with your mock draft, I've done 4 mock drafts this year. You've only done 1. You like to wait till it's all said and done. No hemming and hawing with the other stuff. You've got one final product.
Yep.
So with that, with your final mock draft, which pick are you most confident about? We used to call this the draft day guarantee. You got to pick one pick that you're guaranteeing.
And the one thing you used to do in the draft day guarantee is do somebody outside the top 10, and that's what I automatically assumed in my brain, and then I saw your pick, so I was a little disappointed.
Sorry.
But I automatically assumed, because it was your thing. Draft day guarantee was your thing, and it had to be outside the top 10. So I was like, oh.
Spoiler alert, I broke my own rule.
Yeah, so I went with pick 20, that is Devin Bush to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I said this, I talked about this a month ago, Devin Bush going to the Steelers. I haven't wavered. It seems like it makes sense. You see a lot of guys there. The Steelers, they always seem to operate best defensively when they have that tone-setting linebacker. Yep. They lost Ryan Shazier. They're looking for that replacement. Devin Bush can definitely be that guy that replaces Ryan Shazier. I was just watching some tape of him. That guy knows how to find a hole. He's very good on run blocking schemes where he finds his way through the one open hole and he will stick your running back and drive him to the ground. He's got great speed and he can cover. They need that guy again. They need him back, and Devin Bush is that guy.
Right. I was going to say that closing speed is basically second to none. It's pretty sick.
Yeah.
So what I was going to say about him, what scares me a little bit about that one is I've seen some mocks with him like just outside of the top 10. So if he's not there, kind of kills a draft day guarantee. In my final mock, I actually have him falling as low as 28 to the Chargers. Honestly, if he's on the board when the Chargers pick, do you think any team will run faster to get their selection in? Like, that seems like they have a need at linebacker. I think that'd be an excellent fit for him. I like your Pittsburgh fit, but I think Chargers are like 1A or 1B.
Does he have what? They have Denzel Perryman nowadays, don't they?
I mean, he's just been like a thumper, like a run-stopping thumper, and he's been hurt a lot.
Yeah. I don't know. I just think the Steelers need to replace that guy, and that's what makes their defense go. That's that middle linebacker, will linebacker spot.
You're right. Yeah, it's always been a guy that can just chase down people, and even when it wasn't like an all-out linebacker, I mean, they had guys like James Harrison, but at the same time, like Troy Polamalu was kind of that guy, like that leader, that guy that you could just consistently get tackles from, and that's what Bush would be for them.
Well, it was Lawrence Timmons, and then it was Ryan Shazier in that inside linebacker spot. So it's just one of those guys that makes plays.
Yep. My pick. So, like you said, I didn't specify that it had to be outside of the top 10. So I really, really, really want to say Nick Bosa. I called him Nick that time. It's the first time all offseason I've called him by the right name.
Yeah, no shit, right?
Nick Bosa, I want to say to the 49ers. But if Arizona doesn't take Kyler Murray, I think that messes up everything, and I don't want to make that my guarantee. So even though it's not like the outside of the top 10, that's still a tricky one for me. So because of the fact that I don't want to say Bosa, I'm going to go at number 5 with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm also going with with the Devin linebacker. I'm going to go with Devin White. One of the main things with that pick, they've got so many directions that they can go, but they lost Quan Alexander to free agency. So there's already a need there. Plus, you're kind of in that mix of, is he best player available and need? It could be the ultimate match. The thing that I'm hesitant about, there's going to be some edge rushers that are available, and every team could use help, including the Buccaneers. I just think, though, with that loss of Alexander, you can plug in a guy from like Devin White on day one. You talk about getting to the ball, and you've talked about this before. You watch this guy's tape, he pops. He just pops off the screen. He's always filling holes. He's always chasing sideline to sideline. He might be best player available, and getting him on that defense, they've got a lot of holes, but that can be your linebacker for 10 years.
Yeah, I said Devin White's like my number one guy because he was the one guy that I was always like attracted to. And I'm a big Levante David fan. I actually have Devin White mocked to the Buccaneers is all I know as well, but I didn't want to make a bitch move pick like that like you did. But Levante David and Devin White covering, those two alone can cover entire fields. Like, if one guy's not going to run down somebody, the other guy's going to be there. Like, it could be an unbelievable matchup with those two guys. I think that Arizona Cardinals thing, they're either taking Kyler Murray or they're trading out of that spot. My whole issue with that, and I think it's stupid. I don't think they should. I still want to say I don't believe that they're going to take Kyler Murray. And if they didn't, I think it would be dumb to trade out of the one spot. Because then you can take Nick Bosa. That wouldn't make any sense to trade back because then Nick Bosa's still probably going before you go up, so it's a weird spot.
Yeah, but what if the Raiders package those picks and number 4 is involved? I mean, yeah, you're missing out on.
You're not going to get Bosa.
Well, let's say it's probably Murray, and then you got Bosa, and then you're going to end up having maybe Quinn Williams and Josh Allen. Yeah. You could still get a guy like Montez Sweat, Rashawn Gary. There's still people available at that edge rusher position. But you're going to get so much compensation. Like, you might be able to warrant one of those other first-round picks as well.
But don't you want to take the best guy, the guy that you've got the number one pick? Don't you want to take the best guy and instead of falling back and be like, oh, okay, we'll settle for another guy we like?
If you have your guy, yeah, you have to. But man, there's just if you feel equally like we need to get one of these 3 to 4 guys, then you take your chance because there are so many holes on that team yet. But
I mean, I still convinced they could drop back and take an offensive lineman because they have the worst offensive line in the history of football.
And it wouldn't be a bad pick.
No.
Like, it would not be a bad pick. Quite often when we do our mocks, we text each other while we're doing them. You'd be like, dude, I am struggling to either place player X or I'm struggling with this team's pick. So when you're going through your mock draft, was there a team or two that stood out? You're like, I do not know what direction they are going to go.
Yeah, it was both New York Giants picks, like both of them. I feel like they can go so many directions. Like literally take anyone, literally fucking anyone. Do you remember that? Do you know that quote?
No, I'm terrible with quotes today.
That's a super bad quote from when they hit the. He goes literally fucking anything because he hits him with the car. The guy hits Seth Rogen with the car, and he's trying to beg him to not fucking.
Oh yeah, like.
And then he's like trying to bribe him, like I'll buy you blah blah blah, literally fucking anything. Anyways,
Anyway. You got to calm down. You're getting choppy on me.
No, so I feel like they can go wide receiver. I feel like they can go edge. I feel like they can go cornerback. I feel like they can go offensive line. I feel like they can go quarterback, or quarterback as well. Like they can take anybody that's like the top guy on their board at that point. So who knows? It literally depends. It's based on who they like the most, who's the top of their board. We have no fucking idea. We think we do. We act like they do. But at this point, it's like, fuck. You pick the guy that you think that they like the most.
Yeah.
You have no idea who the Giants can be picking at either pick.
Right, and so the way I mocked for the Giants this year was like, okay, I'm just going to step in their shoes, and what would I end up doing? And I tried to mix that with like the rumors and everything that I heard that that I'm trying to believe in. There's so much smoke around freaking what's his nuts from Duke. Just total mind blank right now.
Jones.
Yeah, Daniel Jones, quarterback from Duke, and it's like, would the Giants really have the balls to pull the trigger at 6? And that's not like, I think they do. Like Gettleman will do anything.
Yeah.
However, there's got to be some sort of advisory committee that says, let's wait and see if he's there at 17. Or if we get nervous, there's a run on quarterbacks. Maybe let's try to package that and move up at some point. So I'm going to totally eliminate quarterback from at 6 right now. And if my theory is that they're going to take a quarterback later in that first round, let's try to protect him, because the Giants' weakness for the last half decade is like their most glaring weakness has been offensive line. So I have them taking Florida's Juwan Taylor at number 6. And the only reason that was an easy pick for me is just because I'm like, well, if I think that they're going to try to protect the quarterback, let's just give them the number 1 rated offensive tackle. So I didn't feel like I struggled with that one as much, but I'm with you. That team and that GM, like, they could go anywhere. And I think at this point, you need to expect the unexpected. They could do something just totally off the wall. And it's going to be like, well, people are going to be shocked, but it's like, you shouldn't be shocked. Look what they've done this offseason.
Look, I try not to listen to any of when I'm doing these mock drafts, I try not to listen or take in mind any of the rumors, because everything's such a smokescreen, and we're so wrong every year because of the rumors. So I'm playing Dwayne Haskins, putting Dwayne Haskins at 6. I'm sticking with Dwayne Haskins. I don't give a fuck what everybody says about this Daniel Jones. That to me just seems like it could be a smokescreen trying to get people off of this. I just don't want any part of that. I'm going with Dwayne Haskins at 6.
I had him mocked at 6 so often. Like you said, that was like the popular thing early. And I'm kind of the same way. I almost kind of like pick and choose based on like things that I've read in the past of who've had success, like who's not getting bluffed. And you kind of just got to make your own like decision. Like, what do you think is a smoke screen and what do you think isn't?
For sure.
But it's super hard. The pick that I went with was the Broncos. And I have the Broncos penciled in for Drew Lock. And that's basically what I've had them with this whole time. What's killing me, though, about this Drew Lock pick is in my final mock, I still have Dwayne Haskins on the board. And I don't know that if Haskins is on the board, that they can pass on him. I think Haskins is such a more like complete quarterback already than what a guy like Drew Lock is. I think with Drew Lock, they're just going off like the big arm potential and what Patrick Mahomes has already done, and they're trying to find like the next it guy. And then you've got Joe Flacco. And I know that Joe Flacco is one of the most irrelevant names right now in the NFL. But you got him at a press conference literally honestly answering a question saying, we don't need to draft quarterback. There's other pressing needs for this team. What do you do in the draft room with that? You're like, well, our projected starter quarterback doesn't want us taking a first-round quarterback. Do we put anything into that? In my opinion, no. You put absolutely no stock into that. Joe Flacco is a nobody. I'm still confused as to why they brought him in. But the fact that they brought him in bears some sort of meaning to this whole thing. So that's why I'm struggling with that one. But I've got Lock there, but I'm not as confident in it as I was a month or 2 months ago when I had him mocked there.
Couple of things. Joe Flacco is the Mike McCarthy version of quarterback. He's got this stupid, cocky arrogance that he is like the end-all, be-all for no reasons because he's won one fucking Super Bowl. Literally, am I talking about McCarthy or Flacco right now?
Yep, that's it.
It's the same guy. Like, they do the same thing, and they talk shit like, I'm a highly successful quarterback. I'm a highly successful coach. Literally, they have that same mindset when nobody actually believes it outside of that room besides that fucking person.
Them, yeah.
That's it, yeah. There's a reason he doesn't. Like, Lamar Jackson stinks. He fucking stinks. Like, Lamar Jackson's not going to be good. I'll throw that out there right now. He stinks.
I'm going to hit on that a little bit.
Yeah, Lamar Jackson fucking sucks, okay? He's going to be a terrible quarterback in the NFL, and they decided to move away from Joe Flacco, go with fucking Lamar Jackson. Like, he's done so. His defense has done everything his whole life. The other thing is, I also have Drew Lock mocked at Denver. And if Ben Albright believes that something's happening, friend of the podcast, I'm going to stick with him on it. When it comes to Denver, I'm sticking with Drew Lock.
Yeah, he had your boy in our 32-person mock. We gave him the Broncos, obviously, and he went...
Yeah, he didn't take Drew Lock, did he?
No, he went with Devin Bush. But in his write-up, he said that Drew Lock is Warren's consideration with this pick, and that's what sold me on it as well. I'm like, well, I'm going to lean with someone that at least has a little bit of insight onto this pick as well. So I stuck with it. This next question that I had for you, I kind of already hit on one of these teams, but there are 3 teams with multiple picks in the first round. We got the Raiders, the Packers, and the Giants. What direction do you see those teams with multiple picks going in this first round?
So this is hilarious because I looked at your Raiders and I went back to my draft picks.
Yeah.
And my Raiders picks are Josh Allen, Dexter Lawrence.
Yep.
And Josh Jacobs.
Nice.
And it's exactly what you said in your note of the Raiders was defense heavy, maybe running back with one of Raiders first. So I'm stealing your line right now, but I literally did that. That's exactly what I did. I went 2 deep, 1 edge, 1 lineman who can get to the passer, and then a running back.
Would you think it would be a mistake if they went 3 defensive players?
No, not at all. They need all the pass rush help in the world.
Now, do you think it would be a mistake if they packaged the 2 picks in the 20s and moved up into like the early teens or back into the top 10 and got 2 top 10 picks?
I would rather. Oh, that's tough because 3 picks is nice because you're just tripling your chance of
you can strike out on more people.
You can strike out more people. 2 picks, I don't trust their decision making.
Right.
The whole Raiders drama right now, I don't understand with Mike Mayock and John Gruden sending people home.
And telling them not to come back.
I told you that this team last year before the season, I didn't trust anything about them on record saying, I don't fucking trust John Gruden to save my life at all and this whole team because of John Gruden and just the way he thinks nowadays. And I've pretty much nailed it so far, and I'm not going to change that. And this even makes it worse. Now it feels like 2 of the same guys that are like paranoid and stupid trying to make a draft pick, and I don't know what's going to happen, honestly.
Yeah, so with the Giants at 4, I've got them taking Quinnen Williams. At 24, I've got DeAndre Baker. So I'm going more interior defensive line and then outside corner. And then, like I said, at 27, I have Josh Jacobs. In my first couple of mocks, I didn't have a running back, and I had told you if I have a running back going, 1, it's going to be Josh Jacobs. 2, it's either going to be going at 25 to the Eagles or with one of those picks to the Raiders.
I consider that.
And
it's hard with Jordan Howard there now.
Well, the thing is, like, doesn't Gruden kind of seem like that coach that it's like, okay, like I've solidified a little bit on the defense. Now give me a new toy. Like I already got Antonio Brown, but just give me a new toy. He just seems like that guy that's just going to get giddy about a skill player, and he won't be able to like control himself. Like he doesn't want this fundamentally sound defensive guy. He just wants a new shiny toy.
Yeah, but again, he is the one thing he's got going. He's that old school guy who wants somebody that just gets in there and tackles out. By the way, Ben did mean to say Raiders instead of Giants earlier. So.
Oh, thanks for having my back.
Yeah, I got you though.
Let's move on from the Raiders to your team, the Packers. They are picking, I believe, at 12 and 30.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I see tons of people mocking them to have a tight end, and to that I say, go fuck yourself.
As I'm waving my hand, and then I proceed to go fuck myself. Apparently.
You know what? They talk about this new head coach and tight ends, and I'm sure he'll be having a say in it, but he's also not the draft. He's not the person making the picks in the room. He's not the boss. He's not the deciding factor at this point. But I mean, I think they need to just keep addressing that defense.
Yep.
Last year they added that cornerback spot. You do have Aaron Rodgers, so the offense is going to be. They got Aaron Jones, Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams. Offense is going to be fine unless they take an offensive lineman that maybe happen to fall to that spot. Right now I have Brian Birds at number 12 and Nasir Adderley, number safety at number 30. So I'm adjusting two defensive positions. So I would love to see two more defensive guys just to keep adding to that defense because that's what they need. And Mike Pettin, I think he's like the real deal. So you keep giving him more weapons to play with, the better his defense is going to get because he's aggressive. I think he played more towards Mike Pettin instead of this made up offense. People go and look at what a coach used to do instead of looking at the players that he's coaching.
Yeah.
Coaches adapt to who they're playing with. The reason you have two tight end sets as a head coach somewhere else, because that's where your strength lies. You're a running team. You have to have two tight ends on the field. You don't have that quarterback that's successful that can do what Aaron Rodgers does. If you're a successful coach, you adjust to what your strength is. Aaron Rodgers is your strength. Aaron Jones is a strength. Two tight ends just isn't what the strength is going to be. So I completely 100% disagree with that. I think that's everybody's problem here. I'm the Packer guy, so listen to me, and you're all wrong. But that's what's going to happen. I'm telling you. I wouldn't be surprised maybe if they got a defensive guy they liked, they'd get Rodgers a little present at 30 if the wide receiver's there that they like. But I just don't see tight end.
I think if the edge rusher that they want is still on the board at number 12, I think they pull the trigger there. Yep. They did bring in their two edge rushers in free agency, but I don't think that's quite enough. And the way I understood it is there's like some outs in those contracts after like a year or two if things don't pan out the way they want it. And you get a young edge rusher in an edge rusher heavy, like early, like top tier, like class. Like that's probably going to be your guy. The way I have it, though, and I know you're going to hate this, because at 12, I've got Hawkinson going. And the one reason I have him going there is because I've heard so much hype about him being this top 10, top 15 guy that once I had him fall out, I don't see him going to Miami at 13. I don't see him going to Atlanta or Washington, who are 14 and 15. I think he goes somewhere in that area. And I don't know. This is is it Brian Gutekunst? Is that how you say his name?
Yeah.
This is going to be his second draft. We don't know exactly how he's going to be. He's not like Ted Thompson or whoever it was in the past. Exactly. He might be a little bit different. He might be trying to find like a guy that he can bring in while Jimmy Graham is there. So it wouldn't.
You might hit on your first round pick once.
Yeah, no kidding, right? So I've got the tight end going at 12, and then I kind of did a little bit backwards because I had Clelin Ferrell falling to the Packers at 30. Would you jump out of your seat if Ferrell is available at 30? I think that would be the steal of the draft.
Yeah, I have him at 16, and I was trying to find a way to get him to go earlier because I think people are going to be in love with Clelin Ferrell, or however the fuck you say that. Yeah. I don't like names like that because I say Terrell Owens, other people say Terrell. I don't like these double names. Just get a nickname that we can call you by and move up around.
Right.
But yeah, that would be nice. But I don't know. I like Ed Oliver, to be honest with you. But I just don't think he's making outside the top 10.
What do you say as our in-house Packers guy? More likely that the Packers try to trade up to get one of their guys, they go for a higher pick, or they end up with only one first-round pick and they end up trying to accumulate another first-rounder for next year?
More likely that they trade up with a new regime.
Wow.
Their history is go back. I think they're going to change some things and get more aggressive, especially with this draft, especially with the offseason. Like, I could see them aggressively going after Ed Oliver.
That's what I was going to say next. I'm like, who's the player? And you think it might be Ed Oliver.
Yeah, 100%.
Interesting. I think we have one other team with multiple picks, and it's the Giants. I already told you my strategy. I'd go offensive line and quarterback. And you kind of said, well, I have no idea because it's David Gettleman and it's the Giants. But if you had to make a guess, I guess, at this point, as to what kind of direction they're going to go in the first round, what would be your prediction?
Right now I have Dwayne Haskins at 6 and Greedy Williams at 17.
That wouldn't be a bad draft. Like you would go out of that draft saying the Giants did the right thing.
I think, yeah, absolutely.
Like I would
trust the quarterback and somebody on defense, and those are two very important positions on both sides of the ball.
Absolutely.
Because Eli Apple plays somewhere else, and he's just a fucking head case.
Yeah, he went into the Saints because they had enough of him.
Yeah, they were done with him in the middle of the year.
Who is the pick, or what picks would you predict that you've made for a team in your mock where you think if that team makes that pick, they're going to regret that pick 3 years from now?
You'll like this one. This will resonate with you at home. I mocked DK Metcalf going number 13 to the Miami Dolphins.
Woo.
And look, they have so many areas of need, and I know you're going to agree with me on this. They have so many areas of need that the top wide receiver what am I saying here? Top wide receiver position, but I try to think. To take on instead of that wide receiver position, but I tried to think of the dumbest thing that they could do, and this is what I came up with. The dumbest thing they could do is take a really hyped up wide receiver that I guess nobody's really 100% sure about.
Right.
And it's nothing like killing a rookie wide receiver's confidence by putting him on a terrible team with like no quarterback and just nothing around him. Because by the time they actually maybe got a quarterback and a team around him, his confidence would be so shot he might end up on another team. He might be Devontae Parker 2-3 years down the road.
What do you want? 2 Devontae Parkers?
2 Devontae Parkers. Like that's what I could turn into, and I honestly would not be shocked. I know you don't want to hear it. I know you fucking hate it, but I would not be shocked.
Yeah.
I was like, what's the dumbest thing they can do? I'm like, wide receiver.
Wide receiver. Yeah. DK for the Dolphins would be like the ultimate like fanboy pick. You've got this guy that looks like a robot. Like literally, like you make this guy in a lab, and then you get him at wide receiver, which the Dolphins need. The Dolphins could use a wide receiver or 2 in this draft.
Yeah, they got rid of all their average ones last year.
Yeah, they did. They need one more. So, and then they brought Parker back. They like extended Parker for 2 more years. I think it's not a bad play because he's dirt cheap, and maybe a new coaching staff gets a little bit more out of him. Who knows? But back to the idea of DK Metcalf there. Yeah, I mean, if they hold true to form and really tank this year and go for the quarterback in 2020, why would you bring in a wide receiver right now? Like you can't justify that when there's so many needs up front on both the offensive and defensive line. There's another need for at least one more cornerback right now. There's just and there's good people at both those positions, all 3 of those positions. And if you were to take a wide receiver in that position, yeah, the average fans would be like, oh, we got this brand new toy. He's going to be the bomb at wide receiver. If they have time to throw to him. Have you seen Ryan Fitzpatrick this offseason? He's not getting away from anything. I mean, that guy, he keeps blaming it on birthday cake. Well, he's having like the biggest pieces of birthday cake of all time, if that's a thing. But yeah, I'm with you. I would absolutely hate DK Metcalf in Miami. In my opinion, there's a couple of teams that I think he can fit in with really good right away. I've got him going to the Jaguars just because of the fact they brought in Foles. Let's try it. The defense is still pretty strong. You got your quarterback. You got a healthy Fournette. You got Marquise Lee coming back. Try it. Go with DK Metcalf. See if you can make a run. See what happens. But the player.
I had something I was going to say, and I blanked.
Oh, you blanked?
I said I had something I was going to say, but I fucking blanked, so you ruined it for me.
All right. Well, if you think of it, you can always interrupt. But the player that I have got the Buffalo Bills going with. What's that?
I remember now.
All right, go ahead.
So I saw something where I don't know what it was. It was either it was about the over-unders for each team this year.
Like win total?
It was what?
Win total?
Yeah. So it was it was the over-under win total for each team, and they did like a poll, and it was either I don't know if it was a poll of that team's fans or if it was a beat writer chosen from that team, but the only team that picked their team to go under the amount of wins was the Dolphins. And their over-under was like 5.
Oh, it's a sure thing. It's a sure thing.
All 32 teams, the one team that picked, the one fan base or beat writer picked their team to go under the projected win, like, total was the Dolphins. That's incredible to me. Like, what you guys think of them. I love it.
If the Vegas win total for the Dolphins is 5, we're going to probably have a podcast where we talk about win totals because we love talking about gambling and that kind of stuff. I am sprinting to Vegas. I will run there. I don't even care. I will get there and I will hammer that under. If they win in 5 games, they're going to accidentally win 2 because of Fitzmagic, and that's it.
Yeah, he might get a third. You never know.
That's it. Oh, 3. Okay, fine. I still can have 2 games to play with. I'll be good with that. I'll be good. The player that I was going to say that team might regret is I have the Bills going with Ed Oliver. I believe they picked number 9. There's no doubting it. Like you said, if the Packers jump up and take him, that could be a great pick. He's got a super high ceiling. I don't want to compare anyone to Aaron Donald, but he could have like a very large impact on the game. And he flew under the radar at Houston, and he was hurt a lot this last season. But before this last college season, before all like the hype about him maybe being an all-about-me kind of guy and the production wasn't there because of being injured, he was a consensus like top 5 pick, not even a stretch to go number 1 overall. With that, there are so many high-quality players still on the board at number 9. If all of the things that people are saying about him are true, is he worth the risk when you have that many holes? The Bills could go offensive line. The Bills could go tight end. They could go wide receiver. They definitely can't go running back because running backs make up 65% of their roster right now after they just signed TJ Yeldon. But they could go any position besides quarterback and running back at this point, and it wouldn't seem like a terrible pick. So I don't think Ed Oliver at 9 is a bad pick. Obviously, I mocked him there. But if you want to give me one guy to point out, man, people have issues in Buffalo. That could blow up. Like, I don't know if that's a great fit.
I don't know. That defense is actually really good in Buffalo, so I wouldn't hate it there. I just love Ed Oliver. I think he's going to be good no matter where he is. Because a guy like that plays that position can just succeed no matter what. Like, you don't rely on other guys at that position. Same like offensive tackle. It's not dependent on everybody else around you.
Right, and it's funny, too, because it is what I'm about to say here. Is it a smokescreen that I put out, or is it true? And they were saying Ed Oliver will be fine in his first couple of years, but once he finds success and then that contract comes up and he like gets paid, the rumor is he's going to turn into a me guy. It's going to be all about him, and maybe he has a little bit of Ndamukong Suh about him. Because the big beef the Dolphins apparently had with Suh was he was told to do one thing and he was playing his own game, and then it was making other people look bad was the alleged thing. Well, how many times was he doing his own thing and ended up being the right thing? Like, we don't know that. Like, Ndamukong Suh is not going to go out and just say that, oh, and by the way, when I tackled that running back 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage, I didn't do what my assignment was. I did what I had a feel for. Like, you never know how that's going to play out. But it was the question, so I answered it.
The best players at their position are going to always steer outside the me. I mean, Aaron Rodgers does it. Tom Brady does it. You know, fucking Ndamukong Suh does it. All those guys are going to have shit said about them that people don't like, and it's because they're the best fucking players.
Right.
So, whatever. Right. I don't even listen to that anymore.
No. Before we go on to the next question, I want to bring up Pristine Auction real quick because they're the great podcast sponsor right now for the Loaded Box podcast. That was pretty redundant, but I said it anyways. But you've got less than a week at this point to max out of your total entries to win our signed Alvin Kamara mini helmet. So make sure you check out our website, Loaded Box Podcast /giveaways. Check that out. Find it on Twitter. Retweet the tweet. You get an entry. Try to guess the first team that's going to end up taking a running back. And subscribe to the podcast in either iTunes or Google Play to try to max out your entries. But get entered to win that. And then while you're at it, check out pristineauction.com for all of your man cave needs. All right, DJ, you ready to continue on?
I guess so.
All right. Who is the player outside of your top 10 picks that 3 years from now, once again, you think will be the most successful?
I went with Byron Murphy here.
Ooh.
Because, yeah, it's a big ballsy one. I like that. And it's because of where I have him mocked. It's not just purely off of him.
Yeah.
But it's because I have him mocked to Seattle. And I think in that defense, that scheme, which I think make Richard Sherman look like the best cornerback, it would be a strength. He's a cornerback that I think can succeed in zone because he has a super high IQ.
Oh, yeah.
And loves to step up and play the run. And I don't think he has great man-to-man coverage ball skills, but fucking Richard Sherman had terrible man-to-man coverage ball skills. So I think the scheme that defense run runs, and he's got good length. He's like 5'11", pretty decently long arms. So, I mean, for a cornerback that's pretty tall, pretty long, I think that works perfectly for that type of scheme because those athletic, long guys who like to play the run in that type of defense that really was a lot better this year than I expected.
Oh, yeah.
I think he can succeed big time in.
Right. And if you remember back to our cornerback preview podcast a couple of weeks back with Zach Hicks, I believe that your boy, oh gosh, who did you have? Washington. Byron Murphy. I'm sorry, it was too high on my page. Because I have him as the second cornerback off the board as well. But I believe he was Zach Hicks' number one guy. And he said, I don't think he'll be the first cornerback selected, but I think he'll be the top cornerback because, like you said, he's a little bit undersized, but he can play man. He can play zone. He's pretty versatile. I've got him right now mocked at number 22 Pittsburgh. Like I said, I've got Greedy Williams, 14 to the Falcons, and then Byron Murphy being the next cornerback off to the Steelers. And that was another thing when you said like Devin Bush being your pick at Pittsburgh. Yeah, there's a need at linebacker, but man, outside of Joe Hayden, I don't know what the hell the Steelers have at corner. So if one of those guys slide, I don't see 2 or 3 cornerbacks coming off the board before number 20. I think it'll be really hard for the Steelers to pass on a cornerback, and I think Byron Murphy could be that guy there. I like that pick. Obviously, I made it.
I got Bush, then Murphy, back to back.
Well, there you go. The player that I had, so I really, really, really want to say that A.J. Brown is my player outside of the top 10 that's going to find the most success 3 years down the road. I alluded to bringing up Lamar Jackson earlier in this podcast, and this is where I do it, because I think if there's ever a quarterback that can hold back a wide receiver, it is Lamar Jackson. Yeah, Lamar Jackson took Flacco's spot, led him to the playoffs, you could say, but come on, I mean, that's a brand new quarterback. Teams didn't have a defense for. He had the ability to run. When he's finally asked to make plays as a passer, which is going to happen sooner or later, history has shown us that these quarterbacks at some point, yeah, they can scramble. They can still make plays. But when it's all said and done, they need to make plays with their arm. I don't think that Lamar Jackson has that ability. I just don't see it happening. So I'm not going to say A.J. Brown. Who I'm going to go with is the quarterback that I talked about earlier. And because I have him sliding to 11, I love that as a landing spot for Dwayne Haskins. Because I have been clamoring. I don't even know what that word means, but I think it works in this situation.
Masturbating is what it means.
What's it mean?
It means to jerk off.
Oh, yeah, so I've definitely been clamoring. I've been clamoring for the... What?
It's like a clam is called for vagina, and then
you're aiming it.
And using your hand, which is cold and like
clammy.
Sweaty. Yeah, clammy as well. So it's like the combination, and you've been clamoring all over the place.
Consider me that with the Bengals. I have been clamoring for the Bengals to make an upgrade or at least bring in some competition for Andy Dalton for like 3 years now. And this is, if Haskins falls to him, select him. That's fine. You still have Dalton there. You don't need to throw him in right away. But you finally brought in competition for Dalton, which could be a good thing. And at the end of the day, Dalton's not going to be your guy. He's been there for 6 or 7 years. He's not going to be your guy. One playoff win, like that's not going to do it. Get him out of there. You got Haskins playing with A.J. Green, tail end of his prime. Boyd has been stepping up. You've got some hope at running back finally with Joe Mixon. They've been improving that offensive line. Yeah, they need some help on the defense yet, but they've been making the right moves for a new quarterback to come in. This is the perfect landing spot, and I like, as a pure passer, I don't know that in this draft, I don't know that you can really beat Dwayne Haskins. I saw a little bit of him throughout the year, saw him at the combine. My knock on him is what I said earlier. Just watch what he eats. Just give him an actual dietitian. Don't let him go to the Golden Corral and just buffet all the time. You got to watch what this dude eats. He's close. He's close to being Roethlisberger style. You watch what he eats. He'll be a fine quarterback. Give him A.J. Green. Everyone's going to look pretty damn good. Andy Dalton looks good every once in a while. Number 11, Dwayne Haskins. 3 years down the line, I think this is going to be a very solid pick if they can land him.
Look, Dwayne Haskins is the best quarterback in this draft. I don't want anything to do with Kyler Murray. I'm not touching Kyler Murray with a 10-foot pole. Just not. Don't like him.
Do you have a 10-foot pole?
Yeah. You know what? You'll see. But imagine seeing Dwayne Haskins and Andy Dalton standing next to each other on the sideline. This super white guy with this blaze red hair and like a black guy who's next to each other. It's like dirt and fire. It was wild. It's like somebody got lost in the wild and had to start a fire on top of the dirt.
And that's the beauty in the pick, though. You went from one extreme, which didn't work, you're going to the next. Like, we're going to go to this kind of fairly I don't want to say he's out of shape, but he's a bigger guy. And
Just a ginger and Manega.
A little bit darker than a guy like Andy Dalton. I'll give him that. The last question that I had for you is, if you have to predict one team that's going to try to trade up in this first round, who are you predicting, and do you have any guesses as to which player they may be targeting?
I didn't pick a specific player. I said the Indianapolis Colts. I think they really need to add a lot of spots on defense. Their offense is pretty good, but they need to add a lot of. So I can see them making a move for some kind of D lineman or an edge rusher, or maybe even a cornerback they love. Probably more likely the former, but I could see them jumping up to try to get somebody they love that's kind of still on the board, maybe dropping a couple of spots before somebody else takes them.
Yeah,
because they're just a couple of defensive players, maybe one or two from like getting over that hump with Andrew Luck.
Yeah, they were probably the next team in line for me. I love that as well. I don't know exactly what their draft capital looks like, but I know going into free agency they had some money to spend, so they might be able to afford some more higher round draft picks. But I love that idea. With how, I don't want to say the AFC is wide open because it's been dominated by the Patriots, and it looks like the Chiefs are kind of that next team in line. But if the Chiefs don't make some significant improvements on defense, they can be had. Like we saw it in the playoffs. The Colts are there. Like the Colts are kind of that team. So rather than waiting back and just trying to develop through these Andrew Luck years, go all in. Add somebody that's going to make a difference this year and within the next 3 to 4 year window. Try to maximize now. So I love that pick. I also like the idea of one of these teams with the multiple first round picks, packaging them together, try to jump up, grab the guy they really like. Or trade it for a first rounder in next year's draft as well, because next year's draft, from everything that I've seen, is going to be pretty loaded. But my prediction for this year, if I'm not taking the Colts, I'm going to go with the Chiefs. And what I'm going to do with the Chiefs, and one of the reasons I'm taking the Chiefs is because we talked about teams that we struggled to mock for. Chiefs would have been my second pick for this, because right now I've got them taking in N'Keal Harry, the wide receiver out of Arizona State. And I don't think it's the most pressing need. I think it's more of I don't want to even call it a luxury pick at this point, but it's not exactly hitting exactly what they need. The Chiefs need help on defense, and let's say Greedy Williams does go off the board at round 14, and then let's say Byron Murphy goes off the board early in the 20s. You've got one other cornerback right now in DeAndre Baker that's really projected to go in the first round, and he might not make it down that far. So they might have to make a play to get in there, because I think their most pressing need is still trying to find another cornerback right now. They haven't had a ball hawk since Marcus Peters, and I don't think anyone in this class is a ball hawk like Marcus Peters, but they need to address the position, and they need to get better on defense. That's what's going to make this team complete and really be able to challenge for the Super Bowl. So if there's a team that I'm predicting that can trade up or should trade up, I'm going with the Chiefs.
I have the Chiefs sitting at 29, but I do have them taking a cornerback.
Do you have one falling to them?
I have DeAndre Baker dropping to
nice.
To there, so
nice.
I think they would sit there and light that if they got it.
Yeah, I'm curious. Do you have your mock draft up in front of you right now?
Yeah, I mean, how would I tell you what I had there?
Thought maybe you memorized it. You only do one.
Yeah, I got them.
I'm curious to know where you have Rashawn Gary going.
14 to Atlanta.
Because that's one guy that I've had it going as high as 5, and now I have going as low as 21 to Seattle. Yeah. By the way, I love that fit in Seattle if he hangs there. And I could see it, because every year, we see a guy that has super high ceiling, and there's a lot of talk about him, and they end up falling a little bit. So he's kind of like my draft day fall guy, but I like your situation with him as well.
I mean, I put him right in the middle of the two picks you just said, right? I am so iffy on him after watching the tape of him, and I was like, God, people are super high on this guy. Yeah. I'm not as high. So I was splitting the difference and trying to find a good fit for him. I don't really like Rashawn Gary myself. But I was just trying to look at needs, and I thought the Falcons were maybe a good spot for him at this point. Yeah. So that's where I went.
Yeah.
No, I don't really like them.
There's a team that I would, if I had to like bet, what is this team going to do in the draft? And the team is the Patriots. I would be willing to bet in the first round they don't make a pick. I'd be willing to they trade that to someone that wants to get into the last pick of the first round.
Okay.
Currently, right now, since we didn't project trades because trades are basically impossible to predict and it messes up everything in your draft, we're just going as is if the order were to stay the same. I've got him taking Noah Fant just because he's basically still there and a position has opened since Gronk's retired. I'm curious to know, because you said you did not have the Patriots taking a tight end. Who do you have the Patriots taking at 32?
So I realized that when I did the mock, I put the same guy at number 32 that I already had drafted earlier. So then I had to make a change, and I have to make the confession. I have them taking T.J. Hawkinson. And
you made me a liar.
I just counted it as like a second-round pick because it's so close. It's one pick away from the second round, so I still counted it as a second-round pick in my head. So I had to fill up somebody there. I still might make some changes tonight, honestly.
You're a total asshole. I can't believe you just made me a liar right here on my own podcast.
Yeah, I changed it today because I have N'Keal Harry going way too high at this point. I need to move him down, and I would probably mock him down at New England at this point. Although I have way too many wide receivers, I think I need to move one or two into the second round.
Yeah.
Get out of that first round, but I had to put a tight end in there for a filler just for my mind's sake. But I might make a couple more changes before we release it tomorrow.
Fair enough. Yeah, it hasn't been officially released yet, although we do need to get it up there because I just told people that it's available. So
it'll be available.
Got to get on that. Yeah. We have a lot of Vikings followers, and fortunately for me, because I don't mind the Vikings. Unfortunate for you, well, I guess you like controversy, so I guess it's fortunate for you as well as a Packers fan. Curious to know, do you have an offensive lineman going to the Vikings, or did you have them going any other way? Because I literally think you can make a prop bet, offensive lineman versus the field, and I'd bet offensive lineman.
Yeah, I went offensive lineman, definitely.
Yeah, I don't even know if that probably wasn't even warranting of a question. Do you have any other players or picks or situations you wanted to bring up?
No. I was looking through this shit. I think this could be one of the more fucked up top 10s we've ever seen. Honestly, the drafts I've been looking at, mock drafts, because obviously we look at mock drafts, we're NFL fans, we're humans. I've seen more trade predictions than I've ever seen in my life, and I think that's the dumbest thing like that you can do. If you're going to do like 20 of them, it doesn't make any sense, which I've seen like 100. It seems like every pick is a trade prediction at like 2 or 3 of these like CBS Sports or SI mock drafts that I've seen. No, you're not going to get that right. You're just not.
Yeah.
You're never going to get that right.
I like the idea of being able to throw a trade into my mock, but like you just said, like there's so many phone calls that have already happened, that are happening now, and that are going to happen on draft day. You are totally speculating, pure guess, and every pick changes how those conversations go. So if someone that gets picked, that there's surprises in every single draft. Remember when Laramie Tunsil dropped all the way to the Dolphins at like 11 or wherever it was?
Smoke some weed.
Who knows if a freaking gas mask bong video shows up for someone? Next thing you know, Nick Bosa falls to the Dolphins.
That's one of the best things I've ever seen in my entire life.
The funniest thing about that is, like, remember that Draft Day movie?
Draft, yes, of course.
So let's say they would have made like that situation be in that movie. Like, oh man, this top player that could have went number 1 overall had a gas mask bong video leak. Like, okay, this movie sucks. You just shut that off and told everybody that you know not to watch it
during the draft.
That's why right before the damn draft. That's why this is the best. Like, this is the ultimate of reality TV. I think this is why, like, you watch Big Brother and all these reality shows. And I'm just like, I don't need it. I watch the draft. I'll rewatch the draft.
That doesn't make any sense.
I love it. NFL Network was showing like all the replays of drafts.
I saw that.
I'm in. I'm suckered in. Ruined my day. All right. Anything else?
No.
All right. As always, check us out on Twitter. We're found at Loaded Box. Check out the website. We've got all of our podcasts, all of our blogs, all of our mock drafts. Coming soon after the draft, we'll have fantasy football rankings, loadedboxpodcast.com. We'll be recapping the draft in our next episode. Until then, if you haven't already, you should have by now, but subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, Google Play, or however you are listening to that. With that, enjoy the draft. And on Thursday, I'm going to be doing like an instant recap of all the picks. That shit's going to be ready for you, like maybe even during the draft. That's how fast it's going to be. It's going to be the most instant of instant recaps. So make sure you check that out. Loadedboxpodcast.com. With that, DJ, send us away.
Cheers. Bye. Yeah.
Ooh, a late bloomer.